Welcome into episode 49 of the Josh Hendrickson Show. I started saying McCready and Siskey, but that ain't it. The Josh Hendrickson Show here on MPW Digital. I'm Neal McCready, joined as always by the Chair of Economics at the University of Mississippi, otherwise known as Ole Miss, Josh Hendrickson. Josh, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Trying to think where to even start because I got a lot I want to get to, but I always feel like we should break the ice on something. I see where the Cubs are letting everybody go. They're not going to spend any money. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's the same story every year. Every year. It's just, I mean, I knew that when there was no extension given to Tucker, that likely meant he was gone. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Saved $1 million on Andrew Kittredge. I was glad. I was glad that we could save that money pre-Christmas. The Ricketts can.
Well, yeah, they got to, they got to do their shopping. So
I mean, you never know. Like,
I mean,
don't know what the grandchildren want for Christmas. It clearly isn't a good baseball team.
No.
So whatever it might be.
No.
Barbie doll, American Girl store, a factory in Xinjiang, or who knows, right? But
it's the Ricketts are an interesting. They're an interesting family. It's been a wild ride.
Jay Jones wins the Attorney General's race in the state of Virginia. He is now the leading law enforcement agent, soon to be sworn in as the leading law enforcement agent in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Jones, it has been verified, once told a colleague repeatedly in text and also in voice that he hoped that the children of his one of his political rivals were killed because that's how you changed policy. I'm not making. It's great. Those comments were made public. No one has refuted those comments. The comments have essentially been verified multiple times over, and yet he won election.
He also said, by the way, he said Hitler, Pol Pot, Speaker of the House. Speaker gets 2 bullets, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the
two bullets.
Yeah.
Those 3 people. How do you handle the bullet distribution? Yeah. And he said that he would give both of the bullets to the Speaker of the House of the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, I should add, who at least what is known of this former politician has never committed mass genocide, unlike Adolf Hitler. And Pol Pot. So it's an interesting decision.
I just wanted to bring it up, just in case like the child murder wasn't enough. Like I just wanted to throw that in there. That like he actually wanted to murder more than just the children.
Meanwhile, the gubernatorial race was almost always won by a Democrat who, when asked about Jones's comments during a gubernatorial debate there in the Commonwealth of Virginia, her answer was this, and I quote, "She said nothing."
And not just that, she had like the most awkward look on her face. Like she almost had like a grin on her face because like, and it seemed like a grin like
the kids didn't die
of embarrassment, but it was it's like, come on. Like what? Like,
so what do you take from this? What does this tell you? I know it tells you a lot, but what does it tell you that that's who won in the wake of, especially in Jones's case, pretty damning accusations, and in the governor-elect's case, a complete either moral cowardice or these are marching orders, or both?
So a couple things. Number one, just about elections in general, I think the best thing that you can do today is like not listen to anyone on cable news tell you why this happened or what's going on, because they're all going to give you stupid strategy-based reasons as to why all of this stuff happened. And also, there's no accountability for these people. So like if you turn on CNN, all the people on the election coverage, like they're wrong a lot and they never get fired for being wrong. Like they're just they just continue going. And so they're all going to say like, oh, maybe they could have like had a better like get out the vote operation or blah 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 blah. No, there's a couple things that are going on here. Virginia is a blue state. New Jersey is a blue state. It's an odd numbered year. People don't vote in off-cycle elections in high numbers. Oftentimes what determines the outcome of an election is who's motivated to vote and who turns out to vote. And so in this case, I don't think any of these results are necessarily like surprising in the sense that there are just a lot of things working in the favor of the Democrats. These are blue states. These are, not only are they blue states, but they're blue states where red voters have been fleeing them, right? Like this narrative that like the Republicans were going to win the governor's seat in New Jersey. It's like you've been telling people for the last since COVID that there have been like 1 million Republicans or more who have like migrated out. Okay, well, that's 1 million or so votes that you just lost, right? And so the biggest thing that you can do is you cannot get bogged down in all the minutia of these elections, and you should focus on big picture stuff, which we can circle back to in a little bit. But as it relates to Jay Jones, this is a mask off moment. It's been a mask off moment for a long time, but it's a mask off moment that means, I think, a little bit more this time around, because I can't recall somebody, with this explicit of a threat against an actual person.
And to be clear, in the text, he is talking to a colleague in the state house who essentially says repeatedly, Jay, stop. Don't say this. This is terrible. I don't like it when you talk like this.
You don't mean it.
Essentially giving him the opening, the opportunity to say, yeah, I know. I'm just pissed. I hate him. I'm so mad at him. I can't believe he's voting for this. I don't really want anything to happen to his children. You obviously know I don't literally mean it. I'm just, wow. I'd really like to have a word with whoever, right?
Yep.
Where you can go, okay, well, he's kind of a jerk, but he didn't literally mean that he wants the children to die. Given an opportunity to say that, he repeatedly said, no, this is the way that you impact policy. People sometimes have to feel pain to change their policy. To which he was met with, this is making me very uncomfortable. Please stop saying this. Essentially, please tell me you don't mean this. To which point he triples down and says, yes, I mean it.
Yeah, this is the most extreme example of something like this that I've ever seen. And it's a huge mask off moment, not only in and of itself, but also in the context of recent events, right? So somebody showed up in Butler, Pennsylvania, and they shot Donald Trump. Somebody showed up on Trump's golf course and tried to shoot Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Somebody showed up on a college campus and shot Charlie Kirk in the neck and killed him. And here you have a politician who is advocating for that type of violence against political opponents. And so it's a mask off moment, because the thing is that the thing that I think affected people most about Charlie Kirk was watching the reaction of people on social media to his death. And because it wasn't like it wasn't like it was like AOC being like, well, he deserved it or something like that. It's not like a politician. It's not like one of these people. It's that people's friends were getting on social media and saying this. People's neighbors were getting on social media and saying this. People were seeing teachers at elementary schools get on there and say this. Librarians. Okay, like people that you interact with in your daily life were saying this. And then you have a politician who is essentially advocating for this exact thing. And then people showed up and they voted for him. And that's a mask off moment, because here's the thing. I've seen people, they've interviewed voters in Virginia, and they've asked them, like, who did you vote for? And if they say that they voted for Jay Jones, they're like, what about the text messages? What did that not bother you? And they literally make an excuse. Like, they're just like, yeah, well, like, Donald Trump is bad, and so, like, I wanted to vote for the Democrat. And it was like, okay, but first of all, like, Jay Jones is the Attorney General of Virginia. Like, that's what his job is.
Yes.
So it's not clear.
The leading law enforcement agent in the state.
Well, and it's also not clear, like, what that has to do with
Commonwealth.
Yeah.
So sorry.
It's also not clear what that has to do with Donald Trump. Right. But the other thing is who cares? Who cares what it has to do with Donald Trump? The point is that, like, you're coming up with, like, a completely banal explanation for why you voted for a guy who advocates killing his political opponents and their children. And not only that, like, he also had all these other texts mixed in there where he's like, if I out-survive these people, I'm going to piss on their grave.
Yes.
Like, this is a man who is full of hate. This is a man who doesn't deserve to be anywhere near, like, this guy doesn't deserve any, like, he shouldn't be, like, dog warden, whatever, like, the lowest level of local office is, right? Like, he doesn't even deserve that. Like, this guy, like, I wouldn't want to live on the same street as him. I don't know that I would want to live in the same town as him. Like, this guy is an absolute lunatic. He's filled with rage. He was given multiple opportunities, both in the text message and subsequently, to apologize. He never did.
And to this point hasn't apologized.
No. And then
because he meant it.
And then not only that, is that when they asked members of his own party who are also running for office about this, none of them would say that it was bad. All of them would justify it. All of them would say, well, he's still the better candidate. Just to be clear, the guy who wants to murder his political opponents is the better candidate. So what is his political opponent advocating, actually? Right? Like, what is that person running on that would be worse than, like, murdering people that you disagree with? And I think that is, but this is a mask off moment. I've been begging people to pay attention. When people tell you who they are, listen to them. I said this weeks ago. We have transcended political divides here. We have a problem in the sense that we don't just differ on political questions. We differ on existential questions. And when you differ on existential questions, by definition, that's about survival or not. And so what happens is that people are going to move towards this any means necessary way of gaining power. And you see that right now, is that these people who say, well, Donald Trump is bad, what they're really saying is that giving this lunatic political power is necessary because I don't like Donald Trump. And that is a dangerous mindset. That is incredibly dangerous. But people have to recognize this, because because there's still this attitude where, you have a conversation with people and you say, like, this is completely insane. We have reached a point that's, like, totally bizarre. And they're like, how many points do you think Ole Miss is going to beat the Citadel by this week? And it's like, no. This is something that we have to take super seriously, right? Like, this is not just like, oh, we lost an election to a guy with, like, questionable morals or something like that. This is not like, oh, we lost to a guy that, like, we just fundamentally disagree with on policy and he's probably going to implement some policies we don't like. No. This is a guy who advocated murdering his political opponent, pissing on the graves of his political opponents, murdering his political opponent's children to make a point. Not even, like, because they deserved it, like, or something. Like, that wasn't even his argument. His argument was, he said to do it for purely political reasons, not as though these children were, like, criminals or something. Like, it was.
Well,
like,
he did say they were a little fascist.
Well, that was the other thing.
So therefore, he is saying that without proof that these young people are fascist, he just is accusing them of being a little fascist, and therefore they need to die.
And this is where we are, and this is a mask off moment. And if, like, and if watching people who you thought were your friends, and watching people who live in your neighborhood, and watching people who teach at the local public schools celebrate the murder of Charlie Kirk didn't wake you up, and the election of Jay Jones after these texts don't wake you up, like, I don't know what's going to wake you up. Like, at some point, you have to actually realize that this is now mainstream. This is not like this is not the fringe anymore. This is not like some random like city council candidate in some town in New Jersey that you never heard of. This is the Attorney General of Virginia. And so this is as mainstream as it gets. This is as inside the beltway as it gets. And for no one on that side disavowed what he said. No one said, that like he should drop out of the race. Nobody was like, nope, this is beyond the pale. Instead, they rallied to him, and not only didn't get like that's the other thing is like it's not even that they gave wishy-washy answers. They all basically said like, yeah, they're bad comments, but he's still the better candidate. Or like, no one even defended him as though like, oh, this is not like I don't think he meant it, or like this is not who he really is. No one even said this is not who he really is. They were like, he's still better. Like, so that's an implicit admission that like, oh yeah, like this guy's a lunatic, but he's our lunatic.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny that you say that about being a wake up moment. You weren't there. I was. End of the month, Erica Kirk and the vice president, JD Vance, appeared here in Oxford. It's a cold, wet day. It was about a week ago. 2 weeks? 2 weeks.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
It was cold. It was wet. And I saw young people stand in line for, I'll try to put it in person. Your son, Carson, went.
Yeah.
My daughter, Caroline, went. Caroline and Greg Jones and I taped on that Wednesday The Butcher versus the Dance Instructor at noon. And she walked out of the house at about 12:32, going straight to the Ole Miss campus, where she was meeting her friend Gracie. Gracie, I know your boyfriend watches some of the shows, so hello to you. I hope you're doing well. Love you very much. You're a sweet girl. Met Gracie and another couple of girls and got in line on campus. And so they were in line by 1:15 at the latest. And they got in the pavilion around 5. And I'm not making this about Caroline. I'm using her as a point of reference. When she got there, I said, how big's the line? And she sent me this picture that just went on and on and on. She goes, I think I got here in time. She goes, some of these people have been in line 2-3 hours. So I thought that was interesting that many young people, she said it was mostly Ole Miss students, but that she ran into students from LSU and Mississippi State who had made the drive to Oxford. I'm assuming borrowed a friend's student ID or whatever to get in and go see the vice president and Erica Kirk. But her point was it wasn't just Ole Miss students. It was mostly Ole Miss students, but there's a lot of young people, right? They weren't there for a football game. They weren't there for a basketball game. They weren't there to get high noons and Bud Lights. There were no hot dogs. It was cold. It was raining. And they stood in the line. And she was like, nobody really even complained. And they stood in the line and they got in there. And one of the messages that Erica Kirk gave them was that if this is not a wake-up call, she doesn't know what is. What does it take? I find it interesting so many people. And look, I have questions about the assassination of her husband. But I find it fascinating how many people want to point fingers at her somehow, some way, with just no proof at all. Feels like that's a bridge way too far. But regardless, her message was this should be a wake-up call. And this was clearly a woman. I was close enough to have a decent look at her. She looked tired. People are dissecting whether the tears are real or whatever. She looked like someone who had been through hell. Not a polished public speaker. I know for a fact from someone who would know that a lot of her remarks were off the cuff, that she got off of her script, that she had a script that was supposed to go like 5 minutes and she spoke practically 30. And it's interesting that you say that about if that's, if these things aren't wake-up calls, what are? Because I saw a lot of young people that had been woken up. Now, they weren't voting in Virginia, and they weren't voting in New York City, which we'll talk about in a moment. But my guess is that they're voting, and not all of those kids are Mississippians. As you know, you teach at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is roughly half out of state.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to just take an educated stab here that there were kids from Texas and Georgia and Tennessee and Missouri and probably North and South Carolina and maybe elsewhere that were there for that event, including a lot of kids from Mississippi, obviously. But those were motivated kids, young people, and I don't know. I took a lot of energy from it, honestly. More from the young people in attendance than I did the actual speakers themselves. And the vice president of the United States was incredibly impressive speaking. I mean, really, really good. But I walked away from that more excited about the resolve shown by that many young people to stand in the rain, in the cold. And when they got into the building, many of them sat for an hour and 45 minutes before anyone spoke. And again, they weren't munching on popcorn and drinking beer. They weren't watching teams warm up. There were no bands. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were there to hear something, to validate something, curious about something, all of the above. It kind of excited me for our kids, yours and mine, generation.
But I think this kind of is where the real lessons of the election are.
Okay.
The real lessons of the election and the elections going forward is like Mom Donnie in New York. A lot of people are like, oh, Mom Donnie is, he's just he's a communist, and I can't believe they voted in a communist and blah blah blah. He is a communist, but he's more than a communist.
Much more.
Mom Donnie is, you see this actually in a lot of places, but Mom Donnie is a representation of third world politics brought to the United States. This is not something that we've had before. This is not run-of-the-mill communism, right? This is rooted in this idea that somehow the West got rich by looting the rest of the world, and now we're here to exact revenge, right?
Yeah.
Now we are in a stage where this is not run-of-the-mill communism. This is third world politics. This is decolonialization. That's what this is. That's what motivates it. That's what's driving these things. And when you look at where his support is coming from, his support is coming from people who are not native New Yorkers.
In fact, there was you sent this to me earlier today. Exit voters were asked, how long have you lived in New York City? And of those who voted for him, 85% said less than 5 years. 8% said 5 to 10 years. I'm sorry. Of Democratic voters, 79% said 5 to 10 years. Of Democratic voters, 38%, only 38. The numbers are weird the way that this is done, but basically it's people who aren't from there and who haven't been there long.
Yeah,
and his quote, Zoran Mamdani, we came here to remake the state in the image of our people. Hear that one again. We came here to remake the state in the image of our people.
See, we have to have a frank conversation.
Is this where I read what Pat Buchanan said and then let you comment on both?
Yeah.
Pat Buchanan, years ago, was quoted saying, "For what is a nation? It is not a people of a common ancestry. Is it not a people of a common ancestry, culture, and language who worship the same God, revere the same heroes, cherish the same history, celebrate the same holidays, share the same music, poetry, art, literature, held together in Lincoln's words," that's Abraham Lincoln for those who don't know, "by, quote, bonds of affection, mystic cords of memory stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone. If that is what a nation, if that is what a nation is, can we truly say America is still a nation? And there will be people that will push back on the religion part of that, but it's one of the things, and then I'm going to shut up. One of the things that JD Vance said the other night, he was asked a question. He invited people to come up in the spirit of Charlie Kirk and ask questions. And there was I want to say young woman came up, and the topic was about immigration. It was a young man because he was dating a woman who was here on a green card. And the topic was about immigration, and they were both very respectful to one another. But Vance did not relent. He said that we have to slow it down a lot, and that people have to immigrate to our country who are wanting to assimilate into our society. They're coming here to be American, not to change America. They're coming to America to be Americans because it means something to be an American. It means freedom and the ability to chase prosperity and the ability to chase happiness and the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. And it means a lot of different things. And there was a process that people went through to become Americans and to assimilate into American culture. You know, I mean, to go to the football game and watch a sport that you don't completely understand, but you become a fan of it because it's an American thing. That's just one example, but it wasn't to change the fabric of the country. And now you have people who are openly saying that, and again, I'll get the quote here because I think this quote is powerful. We came here to remake the state in the image of our people.
People, this is another thing that, I mean, people have to open their eyes about. And this is gonna, this is not gonna be something people want to hear, right? Like we don't just have an illegal immigration problem, we have an immigration problem. And what I mean by that is, and look, if people want to understand this, this is not mere opinion. This is not like me just sitting around thinking about things and being like, oh, I don't think this works. No, here's the thing. There's a book by Sam Huntington that was written in the early 2000s. It's called Who Are We? And it's about the United States, and it's about immigration, and it's about assimilation into the United States. And it's about concerns about, what does it mean to be an American anymore? Like what kind of immigrant populations, when do immigrants assimilate and not assimilate? What types of immigrants assimilate and don't assimilate? All these kinds of things. And my attitude on this has changed dramatically, but it's changed dramatically in a variety of ways. Number one, the expectation of immigrants is that if they're coming to the United States, they want to be part of the United States. Like they're coming here for the American dream. They want to be an American, right? And you look at this and you look at, I can't remember the guy's name. You look at the guy who ran for mayor in Minneapolis, who was from Somalia, and you look at Ilhan Omar, right? And these people in Minneapolis, you have this huge population from Somalia. Somalia is a failed state. I can't think of a place that would be a worse place to be born and to live. And in that sense, I have sympathy for those people. But here's the problem. When they campaign, they're campaigning on this idea that they're here to represent the Somali people, that this is what they're super proud of, that this is what they that this motivates their politics, that they want to use their position, right, to inform U.S. policy and U.S. foreign policy and all these kinds of things. That's not assimilation. And Mamdani's mother, proudly said, he's not an American. She said that proudly. These are legal immigrants, all of these people. Okay. And so we actually do have to have a conversation about what's going on here. And here's the thing. when you make these arguments, what you're accused of is you're accused of not being compassionate, right? Or you're accused of like not liking people who don't look like you. That's not what this is about at all. What this is about is that when, you know, any country has to have an identity. What happens if when you go to war? People are not motivated by abstractions. Okay, people are motivated by fighting for a purpose, fighting for their country, fighting for their neighbors, fighting for their family. Like that's what motivates people, not abstraction. Like this idea that like America is just like some idea, right? And that anybody who steps on the soil automatically, you know, is just as American as you and me. That's not true. It was never true.
No.
And there has to be an expectation of assimilation, not just in the United States, everywhere. Like if the roles were reversed, like if I show up somewhere else, like I should be expected to assimilate to that culture, to that country.
Yeah.
And my issue goes deeper than this.
If I move to Germany and I become a German, I'm going to celebrate German holidays. We're going to recognize German holidays. I can't expect them to
You're going to speak German.
Yeah, I can't say, hey, guys, how dare you not celebrate the 4th of July? Thanksgiving. It's Thursday, late November. The Lions are playing. Let's go. No, it doesn't work like that.
No, national identity matters. Community identity matters. These are things that matter. These are things that obviously matter. These are things that unite people together, that create a peaceful and prosperous society. Like the failure to assimilate breeds discontent. The failure to assimilate, breeds conflict, disunity, right? Yeah. Like these are not things that we should want. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that really bothers me. I'm done with the compassion stuff, because the thing is like they just tear at your heartstrings. Like, oh, this person was born in a terrible country, and like, how can we not help them? Let me tell you why. When I was an undergrad, I had a job where I worked for a tobacco company, and I had to drive. My territory was the northwest part of Ohio, literally the northwest quarter of Ohio. And I drove to lots of places. This is over 20 years ago. Okay. I drove to lots of places, and I would drive through towns and in towns, and I would drive there. And these are places where you would drive in, you see a rusted old factory, you'd see broken down buildings, broken windows, meth heads on the street. You would see this stuff. These are our people. These are our neighbors. Mm-hmm. These are so don't sell me on compassion. What about those people?
Yeah, 100%.
Those people are human beings. They deserve respect. They deserve not to have their entire political class forget about them. They deserve to have representation. They deserve for people to actually advocate on their behalf, to do something about the once prosperous place that is now crumbling, and that is now where children are born, and they look around, and just like these people from poor countries, they look around and they see that there's no escape. What about them? What about America for Americans? This is a fundamental thing that has changed in our politics, is that, we get to this all the time. We get to this all the time because there's this thing, and look, this is a right and a left thing, because the right, it started on the left, and this picked up on the right. They went along with it. There's this. We talk about the fact that nobody understands any history other than World War II. No one alive today seems to understand anything that took place before World War II.
No.
And the lesson that they draw from World War II is that nationalism creates Hitler.
It's the irony of the whole no kings thing.
Yeah.
Is that we literally are a country that were founded on no kings.
Yes.
The King of England.
And the
morons.
But they think that nationalism just inevitably leads to Hitler. Like, German law actually requires that, you can like shut down political parties if you think that they're too extreme. Um, this is entirely a reaction to the Nazis, obviously. Okay. But the point here is that sentiment was passed throughout the West.
Yeah.
The lessons that people learned from World War II is that, the West shouldn't have been so colonial. The West can't allow nationalism because nationalism is a threat. No, nationalism is like actually fundamentally important to the survival of your country. Like, you need to be concerned with your national interests. That is how we organize ourselves. We organize ourselves into countries. Those countries are going to have interests. Those interests are based on the fact that we have a shared culture, we have a shared religion, we have a shared past, we have...
And we want to protect it.
Yes, and this is the thing.
And pass it down.
And this is the thing, is that the left went on this movement because what they've created is they created this idea that fascism is just the next step from nationalism, right? That if you're nationalistic, that's just going to lead you down this fascist path. And so, we can't allow that. And so so we went down this path. And the right is just as much to blame for this because the right went along with it. The right went along with it and was like, yes, that's right. We don't want to have too much nationalism. We've created this cosmopolitanism. But this cosmopolitanism, wake up. The cosmopolitanism, it exists in the West. It exists in the West. We're the only ones, who had that belief. We're the only ones who have given up our national interests. We're the only ones who have shunned nationalism. We're the only ones who have done this. China strikes me as pretty nationalistic. Russia strikes me as pretty nationalistic.
I mean, a little. Japan
strikes me as pretty nationalistic. Okay. The idea that somehow looking out for your own interests is bizarre this is a completely new idea. It's an ideological idea. It's an ideological idea. It's not grounded in facts. It's not grounded in the idea that we have to discard nationalism is not grounded in any human experience. It's not grounded in any facts. It's a pure ideology, and it's a pure ideology that benefits the left. It benefits the left because the left wants to tear down the West, and one way to tear down the West is to dissolve the national interests of all the Western countries. Because if they have no national interests, then there's nothing to stop people from having, mass migration. There's nothing to stop people from not just supporting every foreign conflict in the world. There's nothing to stop people from just looting the treasury. There's nothing to stop people from doing these things. This is the product of this idea that we cannot love our country, that we cannot look out for the interests of our country, that there's not some shared thing that unites us all as Americans. What we have been told in this post-World War II time is that what unites us is the Constitution. No, the Constitution is a piece of paper. What happens when you have people who don't care what is on that piece of paper? A piece of paper is only as good as the paper that it's written on. What allows you to continue, right? What allows you to continue, you listen to the founding fathers, right? Benjamin Franklin said, "We gave you a republic if you can keep it," right? John Adams said that our country was created, for a moral Christian society, right? These things are facts. You have to have this shared belief. You have to have this shared culture. You have to believe in a national identity and national interests, because without that, there is nothing to unite you. You are not united by a piece of paper. You are not united by dirt. You are united by a shared beliefs, a shared culture, a shared religion. People can get mad about the religion thing. Here's the deal. When the founding fathers are writing about freedom of religion, what they're talking about is it's okay to be a Presbyterian or a Catholic. They're not talking about it's okay. They're not talking about,
they're talking about Methodist versus Baptist.
Yes. This is not, This is a
Which, by the way,
completely
was one
different.
hell of a church basketball rivalry. I'm going to tell you, when Trinity Methodist played against First Baptist in Ruston, it was a long day for the officials. I'm just going to tell you, there was rivalry there.
But that's what
because they thought they had that fancy singing Christmas tree out there at Temple Baptist. They'd pop that thing out about December the 10th and load it up on a cold North Louisiana night, and they'd light the singing Christmas tree. It was their way of like making fun of the Methodists. Like, you guys you're not forward thinking enough, because we would just do like a come and go Christmas Eve communion. They had to have the full thing. I mean,
did Jesus weigh in on the zone?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. There you go. And we ran man to man, and we didn't play any of that zone bullshit that the Baptist did. And I mean, I was older, coaching upward when I realized that Jesus hates the zone. Yeah, that question did not go over well at all. Looking back on it, that was a moment where I'd like to think that God has a sense of humor, and he laughed. The man that I said that to did not laugh at all. He said, we can't do that. And I said, well, I don't have 5 people who can guard those 5 people. Well, you have to do the wristband thing. We're getting our brains kicked in. It doesn't work. My girl with the little green thing can't guard their girl with the green thing. But they can't shoot it, and we're going to play a 2-1-2 zone. We're going to let them beat us from the perimeter. Can't play zone. So Jesus hates the zone. That did not go well. That did not go well. I'm still proud of it to this day, but it did not go well. I digress. But you're right. That was the statement that was written by our founding fathers to sort of say, hey, it's cool if you're Catholic and you're Presbyterian, or you're Methodist and you're Baptist, even though you guys can sort this thing out about the singing Christmas tree. At the end of the day, we're all Americans here. We're all basically praying to the same God.
And I think that this is a fundamental thing that, I mean, I think that the best analogy is I just feel like so many people are sort of like the frog in boiling water. Like they're just not they're just not noticing the gradual increase in the temperature, right? And we have to have, we have to have a national identity. We have to, and we have to look out for our national interests. And what you're starting to see among all these politicians is that their interests aren't the national interest. Their interest is the interest of their community and their country back home.
Yes.
What you're starting to see is the politics of the third world invading the United States. And there's a reason that the third world is poor. There's a reason that people try to escape the third world. Okay. And it's not because they have like this amazing political system with amazing political arguments, but just doggone it, things don't work out. No, this system leads to poverty.
All right. So Austin sent a super chat. It's not exactly about this, but it's close. It was earlier. He said, what's the future of both parties in like 20 years? We're electing crazy people right now. What's the course correct? Does it exist? Is there a course correction? Or is the course correction civil war, which is what some people insist that we're headed towards? Because at some point, if you and I get into an argument, okay, whatever you want to fight about, we start arguing, we start yelling, and I tell you to get out, and you won't get out. And I say, Josh, get out. And you're like, make me. At some point, one of us is going to push, right?
Yep.
All likelihood. And the one who gets pushed is going to get pissed off. And in this scenario, punch back. And then there's another punch. And we're going to fight until someone's not fighting anymore. And maybe that just leads with me having a bloody nose. Or maybe that leads with me having brain damage. Or maybe it ends with one of us no longer breathing. I mean, I realize I'm being extreme, but the point stands. That's where we're headed as a culture, it feels like. We're no longer having civil discourse. We disagree, we try to kill. You miss Trump. You misplan for Trump. You get Kirk. Been others that have said in the immediate aftermath, kill her too. Kill his kids. Kill them all. Just elected a man that said, I want my political rival's children to die. I want him and his wife to feel pain. It's the only way they'll change policy. The person was elected in a just, fair American election. No one's making accusations of ballot stuffing. No one's arguing that this was an unfair election. One fair and square. Where does it go?
Well, the right needs to actually wake up. Like, they need to actually wake up. Like, there's too much celebrating about their victory because Republicans think that they're popular, but they're not actually popular at all. Donald Trump is popular.
I told someone today that this is yet another election where Trump's not on the ballot, where the Republicans get washed.
Yes, because the Republicans are a party that represents no one. Like, they have no constituency. Like, they have people who have voted Republican their entire life, who support Republicans. What Donald Trump grabbed a dead party and he dragged its carcass through 3 presidential elections. He is the reason that they win, not anything that they're doing. Like, they and also, even when they win elections, they don't wield power. They don't actually do anything. This is why Donald Trump was able to take over the Republican Party in the first place, because they looked at that stage that had 30 people on it and they were like, yeah, that's literally the only guy who I think will actually try to do something.
Yeah.
All the other ones are going to talk about all these things, and then they're getting to get in office and they're going to be the exact same person that we elected last time. And that is the issue, is that the right has to wake up. The right has to actually recognize what these problems are. The right actually has to recognize that it's going to have to take hard steps. I mean, you saw this last week. You know, the government is shut down. And what do we get is we get nonstop stories in the media about all these people who are on food stamps and how, like, they're not getting their food stamps and they're having to go to food pantries and all these kinds of things. That's a sympathetic story. Except when you find out that there are 40 million people on food stamps. So if there are 40 million people on food stamps, that means one of two things. One, the economy is way worse than we could ever have imagined. Okay.
Yep.
Or two, there are a bunch of people getting food stamps that don't need them.
Can I take a guess at the correct answer?
And so this is,
I think the answer is 2.
but this is the thing, is that the reason we find ourselves in these places is because nobody is willing no one is willing to have frank conversations. No one is willing to say, like, no, like, we can't actually have 40 million people on food stamps. Like, that is not acceptable. That's not what the program was created for. That's not what it should be run for.
It's the refusal to say, hey, I'm fat. Yes, you're fat. No, you can't have the Reese's cup. Let's go. We're going to go start an exercise program. We're going to fix some things. Here we go. It's going to take a minute. This isn't going to be an instant fix, but we're going to work on it. We're not going to do this deal where you just we baby you. It's what we do. I tell people this all the time. You see it. You see it in our society. You see it. Whites, blacks, everyone. It's across the board. It's not limited to anyone. It's an American thing. We have enabled so many people to just, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use for it. We give them just enough to, like, supposedly live. We completely lose track of who's getting what. We just give more. You have people that our whole system's messed up. And everyone knows it. And to your point, everyone knows it. And Republicans get elected because they get elected saying they're going to fix it. And then they don't. They don't attack it at all. They don't put a dent in it at all because it's not popular to do it, because it's going to inflict some discomfort. It's one of the things Vance said. We have all these problems at home. You can't, at that point, also open just open your borders and let people in and go, well, we'll pay for them too. We can't pay for what we have.
Well, and so what do things look like in 10 years? That what they look like in 10 years is going to depend entirely, I think, on like what happens on the right, because on the left, they're just moving further and further left.
They're not doing anything.
They've been moving further and further left. Donald Trump, if you listen to his speech, if I gave one of my students who was not alive in the 1990s, if I gave them a Bill Clinton speech and I gave them a Donald Trump speech, and I didn't tell them which one it was, and I said which one is Clinton and which one is Donald Trump, I'm willing to bet they couldn't get it, because the Democratic Party,
you could throw Kennedy in there. Yeah,
the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left that they're completely unrecognizable. They are not recognizable. That's going to continue. They're on their leftward march. This is what they believe. The question is how far do they get? And does the right ever actually wake up and see what's going on? Because if the right actually can wake up and see what's going on, then because here's the thing. Conservatism is dead. What's left to conserve, actually? Like, go look up the Communist Party of the United States. Like, look up their party platform from like 1930 or something like that. Like, and then tell me what they haven't accomplished. Like, what are we conserving is over. Conserving is over. What we need is a refounding is what we need. We need a return to the principles of the founding of this country.
I don't have a lot of faith in that.
But that's the thing is like this. But this is what I'm trying to get across to people. When I talk to people,
I mean, it's what Erica Kirk said too.
Yeah, when I talk to people about this, like on the right, they think that they're winning because like Trump was elected, and because like, well, look at the presidential elections, like we win, like since going back to Nixon, like we win like most of the presidential elections, and it's like, okay, but the country continues to move leftward. The country continues to move left. So the idea that you're winning is wrong. You're not winning. You're losing. Everything that you stand for, everything that you stood for 40 years ago, you have lost.
I mean, Zohran Mamdani coasted to victory in New York. Easy. On a platform of social programs such as universal child care, more affordable housing, higher taxes on businesses, and on New York's highest earners. All he's going to do, if he's able to implement these plans, is run business and wealth out of New York.
Well, and that's what I mean is like, here's the deal. Where are we headed? Here's where we're headed. We're headed for a refounding, or we're headed for a new founding.
Okay.
That's what we're headed for.
All right.
Okay. We know what the left's new founding would look like. It's just, the left is just keep pushing in that direction. Okay. So the right is going to have to offer a refounding, a return to the actual constitutional principles.
But that's going to require
the founding of this.
Josh, but that's going to require people to stand up and say, "This is what I'm for," at the risk of losing their employment, at the risk of losing their reputation, at the risk of personal pain. That's what it's going to require for someone to say those things and to advocate for those things. That's where we've gotten as a society, as a culture. That's where we've gotten.
Well, but see, I think that a refounding and a new founding would actually both come from the right. Okay, but the refounding is something that we would want, and a new founding would be something that we wouldn't want. Because here's the deal. As the left continues to push further and further to the left, if the right doesn't wake up, if the right doesn't try to refound this country on the principles of its founding, they're going to have to found something new, because what's going to happen is that things are going to get so bad. Things are going to move so far to the left and get so bad that what it's going to take is you're going to get a Caesar-like figure who says enough.
Okay.
Enough. And people at that point will be so desperate that they will support somebody like that because they will say that, yeah, that's right. It is enough. And if I have to support this guy to get it to take care of all this, then that's what I'm going to do. This is the story of the Spanish Civil War. The story of the Spanish.
Jay Robertson just says it feels more and more like we're living in 1930s Spain.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the Spanish Civil War was about. Like, you can't get an honest history of the Spanish Civil War because it's all written by commies. Okay, Marxists dominate this entire subject area, but you can find, if you read enough and you find good authors, you can understand this. What really happened here is like this leftward shift where the left refused to ever cede power to the right. They wouldn't seat right-wing members of parliament, right? And so what you had General Franco rise up and basically say no. Like, no. And so you had the nationalists versus the communists. That's what you had. And the nationalists won. And they won for the reasons that, like, usually the people on the right win, because the people on the right are the people who make things. The people on the right are people who have like practical skills. People on the right understand like how to allocate resources. They understand how markets work, right? Like and so like they get it. Whereas people on the left, especially the further left that you go, those people live in dreamland. They think fairies and butterflies deliver the butter to your grocery store.
They believe in utopia. They desperately crave utopia. And so even though no one's ever been able to no one's been able to find utopia, it's like the fountain of youth. No one can find it. No one can find utopia because it doesn't exist.
Well, and that's what we're fighting against, though. This has become existential because the modern left is millenarian. Like, these people think that they can bring heaven on earth. They think that they're going to, and that's the thing, is that this isn't just like a difference of opinion, right? Like, people on the right don't believe that's possible because they are predominantly Christian. And in the Christian world, you know that man is inherently fallible, and that no man is perfect, and that perfection on this earth is impossible, and that the only way, you know, that your eternal life waits for you in heaven, that there is no perfection on earth, and that and you can't have two people who think that, you know, you can't have a group of people who want to bring heaven to earth, right? And then people who recognize that that's impossible. Like, you know, like when you reach that point, when you reach that existential point, like, this is the fundamental problem. And so the thing is that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, what does it look like? Well, it depends. It depends on whether the right wakes up. It depends on whether they can actually wield power when they gain electoral victories and roll back some of this stuff. Like, I mean, the other thing that we have to talk about here too is like, there's another elephant in the room when we talk about like why Mamdani is winning and why like socialist messages are winning. Mm-hmm. They're winning because the state has destroyed our money. Like, the state has absolutely destroyed our money. Like, in 1964, the average wage in the United States was $2.50 an hour, approximately $2.50 an hour.
1964?
1964.
Okay.
If you made $2.50 an hour, that means that you got paid with 10 quarters, or you could have been paid with 10 quarters an hour, right?
Yeah.
Those quarters were 90% silver. Do you know how much those 10 quarters made of silver would be worth today?
I don't.
About $84.
Wow.
Is the average wage $84 an hour?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. And silver has been completely demonetized. Okay. Unlike gold, silver has been completely demonetized. Nobody uses like silver for money anymore. Anybody. Nobody.
It's true.
Okay. So you can argue like, hey, you're being unfair. Like, maybe the relative price of silver has gone up. Like, maybe silver is just more valuable today than it was, you know, back then. Okay. Let's cut it in half.
$42.
That's $42 an hour.
Right.
Okay. So, are we starting to approach the average wage in the United States?
I don't believe so. No.
No. So, like, the idea here is that we have completely destroyed the value of our money. And what happens is that when you go through experiences like this, when people realize that, like, you know, that the purchasing power of their money is being eaten away, what they do is they invest in real resources. Like, people talk about this all the time, and I think that this is incredibly important, right? Because houses are not just where we live, they've become a tool of savings. Like, go talk, like, if you could talk to your, like, my grandparents are all gone, but if you could go talk to your grandparents would tell you, like, they bought a house to live in.
Right.
They didn't buy a house because they thought that, like, this was going to be like
Yeah.
a path towards getting wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. And people talk about this all the time. People talk about
Excuse
this
me.
all the time in Oxford, right? So in Oxford, they'll talk about, well, the price of housing is getting so expensive. But we actually have to think carefully about this, because the price of housing, like, if we're trying to compare the price of housing over time, we can't just look at the average house price. What we have to look at is, like, price per square foot. But what you observe happening in Oxford is, yes, the price per square foot is going up. So housing is getting more expensive. But you know what else is happening? Like, I don't see a lot of small houses being built in Oxford.
No.
Like, the price per square foot is going up. The square foot also going up. And so the thing is, why?
Yeah, it's hard to get any. I would think it'd be hard to buy a house in Oxford for. God, I'm trying not to be hyperbolic here. I don't know the exact number, but I would guess it's very difficult to get under 300,000.
Yeah, and I think that, so this is important. So the question is, like, why is that? Well, it's because people are not just buying the house as a place to live.
They're buying the
They're
investment.
buying the house as an investment. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to buy this house, and then, like, when I decide to move out of this house in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, it will be worth way more. And that storing your money in the house is actually like a storing, some of your wealth in that house is just a good bet. And why is it a good bet? Because you borrow dollars to buy the house, and then you buy the house. So you're short the dollar and you're long real estate. Well, the dollar is going down in value and real estate's going up. So that's a hell of a trade. So what do people want? People want more housing. More housing can be more houses, or it could just be a bigger house. And so, like, what's making things unaffordable is that the state has ruined our money. That's what's making this unaffordable. Like, what's making it unaffordable is, like, all of these things that are important to life, all of these real assets, all of these things that people want to own as a part of normal life. All of that stuff is becoming out of the reach of other people. Why? Because we have an unlimited federal budget. We have 40 million people on food stamps. Like, we are spending money we do not have with dollars that we create out of thin air.
Yep.
Okay. And what's happening is and then the other thing is that when you have, like, periods of low interest rates, this also then leads to greater and greater inequality. We had, like, a 20-year period, right, of, like, well, I guess not 20. I guess, like, we had about a 15-year period where interest rates were basically around zero. Okay. When that happens, what people who already have wealth do is they use that wealth as collateral to borrow against at low rates to acquire more valuable assets. And by valuable assets, I mean they're buying things like stocks, houses, things that are going to generate more wealth in the future.
Properties to be rented, things of that nature.
People who don't have very much wealth, what are they doing? Well, some of them are borrowing to buy cars, which depreciate in value over time. So they're borrowing against a depreciating asset. Some of them actually just take their savings and they put it in a savings account. Well, what happens to that savings account? Nothing. You earn no return. You have 15 years of nothing.
Yeah.
But whatever money you put in. And so the people who are able to invest in this wealth, they can accumulate this wealth. Well, they're buying houses and they're buying stocks and they're buying these things. So that makes all those things more expensive. But the people at the bottom, they can't afford to buy those things. And then they're putting their money, and they can't afford to lose money. So they don't want to put it in the stock market. They don't have enough money to buy a house. So they put it in a savings account, or they don't save it at all. But regardless, it doesn't matter, because if they put it in the savings account, like, they're not earning anything on it. It's not growing. So they're getting further and further behind. We have lived in a world where the value of our money has been destroyed. It's been absolutely destroyed. And you look around and that's what you see. Like, look at the number of people who own houses under the age of 40. Like, it's falling. Like, people can't afford to buy houses, start families. Like, they can't afford this.
So let me ask this question, because this is the fundamental part that I'm curious about. This is the people like Charlie Kirk hinted at, that Erica Kirk hinted at, that quite frankly JD Vance hinted at the other day? Is this intentional so that people won't buy homes, won't have families, won't live the American dream? And if a generation doesn't live the American dream, then the American dream will die, and it will make it much easier to take over and ruin what was left of America, throw away what was left of America, and start something new here on this big plot of land on the big rock that we fly through space in?
I think that it's multiple. I think it's multiple things, because it's a coalition of people. It's a coalition of people who benefit from the current system. There are lots of people who benefit from the current system, and because they benefit from the current system, like, they want the current system to continue. So if you're somebody who already has a lot of wealth and you already have a lot of money in housing and stocks, things are going pretty well for you.
Yeah, sure.
So like you don't really want to rock the boat too much, right?
Okay.
But that's like a very, very small subset of the coalition.
But I'm obviously asking about the sinister parts of the coalition.
There are also
not the greedy part.
There are also there are also ideological parts of the coalition where it's like, look, this is just how our monetary system works, and so like we should take advantage of it. Like, we're able to accumulate more wealth than we would be able to otherwise because of this system, and so like we need to stick with that system. But there are people on the left who view that, like, who are in like the sort of looting the treasury stage. Like, this is like, we're just going to, like, this money train is going to end at some point, and so we need to get as much of it now as we can. And look, like, if we're going to borrow all this money, why don't we just borrow it to do all of these crazy things, like, state-run grocery stores and free buses for everybody and free childcare for everyone and all this stuff? Because none of this stuff is free; it's paid for by the government. Right. But that's the point, is that they're just like, well, look, if the government's going to spend unlimited amounts of money, they can spend unlimited amounts of money on my stuff. And then there are these. And so but then there are people who literally want to destroy Western civilization. And so they don't care. They do not care that the system is like this, because they want to bring it down. If it all comes crashing down, like, that's actually great for them. Right. And so when you look at Mamdani's support came from two, like, if you look at like where his support is coming from, it came from people who are not native New Yorkers. But you know what it also came from? It came from like very highly educated people who live in like, places like Brooklyn, right? In like the gentrified parts of Brooklyn, right? Like, these are people who who benefit from the current system. These are people who are motivated by ideology or some combination thereof, who just think this is all great. Like, yeah, everybody should just have free stuff. Yeah, everybody should. Like, I mean, I can afford healthcare, but like, what if I couldn't afford healthcare? Like, oh, I can afford childcare, but what if I couldn't afford childcare? Like, yeah, of course we should just give it to these people, because they don't think about practical things. We don't live in a world where goods are allocated by fairies and butterflies. We live in a world where we face actual resource constraints, but our government lives in a world where they at least pretend that there is no constraint. This is why we have this ever-growing debt. This is why we have government programs that are out of control. This is why we have the destruction in the purchasing power of our money. That's why we have these things, because that is the inevitable result of all of this irresponsible governing.
Little different subject, not similar, different subject, but you can make it the same. Austin sent me a DM on Twitter weeks ago. I told him I'd ask you. All the Kippen stuff's been going on. My Twitter DMs are a disaster. I don't know where I could find anything. He says, when you and other professors talk to students about AI, how blunt are you about the likelihood that AI wipes out a lot of entry-level white-collar jobs?
I think that the economics department probably has the most interesting conversations, I think, because we think about lots of different things. I think most people tend to focus on the fact that like AI can do this stuff, and so then maybe we don't need these other people to do this stuff. I think like those are real sort of risks that we have to think about. But the other thing is that like one of the things that we think about are sort of like is about like AI policy, right? So AI might be a computer, right? But the thing is that computers still face constraints, right? They still need they still need electricity, right? They can only do what they're programmed to do, like all of these kinds of things. And so, like one of the things that we focus on are sort of like what is the potential of this technology, but then also like what are the limits? What's it not going to be able to do? Um, are sort of like doomsday scenarios like likely to happen or not? Um, I think that it's probably going to automate a lot of low level stuff. Now, the question is then so, in theory, um that frees people up to do something else that might be a better use of their resources. But of course, the question is there something for those people to do that's a better use of their resources, right? Are they going to be better off than before? And I think that's where distributional effects come in because some people will be much better off that they're not in some low level white collar job, whereas other people like that might have been the best job that they were going to get. And so I think we talk about these kinds of issues a lot because it's a way to kind of take what we understand about economic theory and then try to apply it to like thinking about how um not only how AI is going to operate, but then sort of like what kind of benefits and what kind of costs that it's going to create for people. And I do think that there is a recognition that like if you, I mean, like I talked to a radiologist, and the radiologist was telling me that he was going to get out of radiology pretty soon. And he was like, because look, like once AI gets good enough, like AI can read all of your scans, and then there's no point. And like, what am I going to do, right? Like, so there's so I do think like there are like legitimate concerns that people have about these job losses. I also think that there are um and I also think that it's not even necessarily like um low level white collar jobs, right? Being a radiologist is not a low level white collar
No,
job.
no.
So it's really about like jobs that can be automated or not, right? And the other thing too is that we also have to think about this is that um sometimes AI is a substitute technology, right? Like sometimes we could use AI instead of a human. But the other thing that we have to think about is like sometimes AI is a complementary technology. So using a human using AI to help them with certain things actually makes them like substantially more productive.
Of course.
And so for those people, it's going to be a tremendous benefit because those people are going to be substantially more valuable to whatever company that they work for. And I'm already hearing stories about this. I mean, one where there's like mixed results is like lawyers, like because lawyers are sort of like I can use this to like search through case law. Now the problem is like AI is not good enough yet, so like sometimes they catch it like with an error, and then they're like, nope, like that's not a case, like that's not, or like, oh, that's not what that says, or something like that. And so,
I
but
know some people in my field
yeah,
that use they use AI of some form to write like summaries of videos and things, and the mistakes that are made are colossal. And they are so dependent on it that they don't check it. They just run it.
yeah,
And it's like, man, I mean, you just admitted that you didn't do it.
yeah.
You didn't use it as a tool. You used it as a substitute.
Well, what's really funny is we have some professors in our department who like will encourage students to use it for certain things. Like they'll be like, but then we also have people who know that, for example, AI gives like wrong answers to certain economic questions. And so like they'll put that question on their homework and they'll see who gives them the AI generated answer that they know is wrong. It's- as a way of checking to see whether people are really doing their homework or not. So yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating thing because I think the thing is like from an economist perspective, I think that the way I typically describe it is the technology is probably going to be much more transforming than like the naysayers say. Like the people who are really skeptical that it's going to have a big effect. Like I think those people are going to turn out to be wrong. But I also think that like the sort of the doomsayers, like the people who think that this is going to be like you know a colossal mistake. I think that they're also wrong. Like what actually happens is somewhere in the middle, and so we have to try to figure out what the most likely scenario is. But then we also have to think about like what kind of um how is this stuff going to be governed? Like what kind of rules are we going to have for these things? And like what are we going to and some of this is going to have to come from legislation, but some of this is going to come from social norms. Like when is it acceptable and unacceptable to use the technology?
Yeah. I use it. I've just now started using it for some invoices. I had to do a couple of contracts. It did good for like just drawing up a really rudimentary contract that was probably legally binding. But I don't I don't use it at all for writing. At all. None. A lot of people in my field do. They use it as a almost as a way to get a head start on a story or a way to get a story summarized. I just I think I've gotten where I can spot it, and I don't know. I'm old school, I guess. I think people pay for whether I'm good or not is up to someone else's. But I think people pay for my thoughts and my words and my creativity and my skill, for lack of a better word. If they wanted a computer generated story, they'd ask for one. I guess that's the way I look at it. But
No,
there's
I think people fundamentally underestimate like the importance and the value of human creativity. Like because I'll give you an
yeah,
example.
yeah.
Like um I had someone who was like sending me these like YouTube videos, and the YouTube videos were like they were taking like 90s alternative rock songs, and then they had made them like Motown songs. And if you like listen to these things on YouTube, right, you're like, this is kind of amazing because you're like, this actually sounds real
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds good.
Okay.
And like, and they're just taking like this thing from one format and they're putting it into a completely different format, which is, which is interesting. But the thing that you also realize though is like AI is like really good at that. Like it's really good at like taking that song that you already know and turning and just like changing the genre of the song and like making it still sound real in this other genre. Like it's not good if you just ask it to like make a song. And I think this is kind of the thing that people underestimate is that the value of human creativity and whether you can actually replace that human creativity. And I'm not convinced that we can. Because what AI is doing is it's replicating language, right? It's replicating language and it's using so much computing power that it's as though you're having a conversation. But that conversation is really just based on like this like predictive power of like what should come next when this question is asked or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's not creative in any way. Um and like and so I do think that that's an aspect that people sort of um don't necessarily recognize is that I think the value of creativity, even the value of human error. Like, I mean, I had a professor tell me the one day he's like, I love it when I'm like reading an assignment and it has a typo in it. So I'm just like, like um I love when there's just like a sentence fragment, right? Like I love
Because
when
it
there's just
tells you
like
that they did it.
yeah, because like you can
Yeah.
because when you have these things that are sort of like natural.
Yeah.
Um, it like, it lets you know that like, this is a human.
Yeah.
And I think that we actually do on a fundamental level appreciate like the human aspect of things.
Yeah.
And so
It's
the,
so funny you say that. Go ahead. I'm finish
yeah, so,
finish your thought.
so the ability to, just, that ability to have that genuine human interaction and and to be like so wowed by somebody's creativity,
Yeah.
I think like that can never be replaced.
You said that about a mistake. I was doing 10 thoughts a couple weeks ago and I made an egregious grammatical error. And I couldn't remember like, how did I do that? That doesn't seem like me. And I remembered like hours later, oh, I was working. I was in the middle of writing and I got a call and I looked at it and I'm like, I need to take this call. And the call lasted 45 minutes. I finished, made a call to someone about that call, and then came back in to write and really couldn't concentrate on where I had been
Yep.
and forgot where I had been and just picked up, and it didn't make sense. And then about the creativity thing, I thought about this the other day. I'm a big Oklahoma City Thunder fan. And you can argue about who's the best player in the world. It's probably Nikola Jokic. But the most creative player in the world right now is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And when you watch him play, I loved Kobe when he was in his prime. And you can tell that young Shai Gilgeous-Alexander studied Kobe Bryant obsessively and stole from him, because that's what we do, right?
Mhm.
Greatness, that's what we do. It's the most sincere form of flattery. And Kobe stole from Michael Jordan, who he worshipped. And you can see this line when you watch them play, and it's beautiful. And you couldn't create a robot to do that. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think you could create a machine that could emulate a young kid's obsession with his hero to the point that he studied him and learned the nuances of his moves, of the way that he dribbled, his body language, the way that he faked, the way that he changed speeds, the way that he kept defenders off balance. It's beautiful. It's art, I mean, that's one of the things you love about sports is like when you watch a great player, sometimes it's like watching an artist. And I don't think you can replicate that artificially.
No, and I think, well, and the other thing too is just think about this. Like, there are certain people, like LeBron James is like this. Sean McVay is like this. Like, they can just recall plays from like 10 years ago. Like, you're just like,
Yeah.
like you just say like, hey, like January 3rd, like, 2009, right?
Yeah.
And like, they're like,
You can say
yeah.
game 1 Eastern Conference semifinals.
Yeah, and then they can
Tell you all about it.
They can tell you all about it. And the thing is like, that's actually something like you could program a computer to know, right? Like a computer can tell you, what happened in that game, what happened on what play or whatever. But it's not impressive that the computer can do that, because that's just like stored in the computer's memory.
Yeah.
And any computer can do it, right? Like, if you know how to program it on one computer,
Yeah.
any computer can do it. But the thing is the thing that makes it impressive is that we know that we can't do that, right? And so when we see them do it, they're humans just like us.
Yeah.
And yet somehow they're able to do this thing that like we can't do. And that's the other thing is it's not even necessarily something that they worked at. Like, in a lot of cases, it's just like this is how their brain works.
It's innate.
And
Yeah.
so like the thing is that you can't even necessarily like acquire that skill, but it's possible because here's another human who's doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so that
Yeah.
as a human, you have the capability, at least in theory, to do this, but you can't do it. But that's what makes it impressive. Like, that's what makes it fascinating.
Absolutely. I think it's why I still love sports. Like, watching a team develop over time is fascinating to me, still is. I was driving to Oklahoma when Ole Miss played there, and I was listening to The Young Man and the Three. It's a podcast. It's a basketball podcast. I'm an NBA junkie. It's bad. It's getting worse. But I was listening. They had 3 of the Thunder guys on. They had Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, and Arkansas Jalen Williams, not the Santa Clara Jalen Williams. And it was so interesting. They're such different people. And the host was asking them about the playoffs last season, and specifically was asking them about the Denver series where they went 7 games against Jokic. And Caruso, who's been in the league a while, could recall details, just vivid details of left, right, things that happen. And Cason Wallace, who's a young guy from Kentucky, just one of those guys who's a dog. I mean, he's going to be a star in the league, but he doesn't prepare the same way. And he admits it. He's like, really want to prepare like that because so much of my game is based on instinct and just go. I guard somebody not by studying their film, but by guarding them. And Caruso's laughing. He's like, I can't do that. Yeah, I've got to study them. I've got to know because he's not as athletic as Wallace. But anyway, there was just so much of a human element to that story of how that team came together and how that team overcame Denver and then overcame the fourth quarter of game 4 against Indiana when they were in trouble, and they knew it, and that's the stuff that always, maybe this is the old school old man in me that not crazy about a total reliance on Chat GPT and AI and stuff, is that I think that the part that you love about sports is the human element of it. It's one of the reasons I'm kind of against, as bad as umpires are, I don't really necessarily want the pure automated strike zone. I kind of like the idea of a person. I like the idea of a catcher over the course of a game developing a relationship with the umpire where the umpire figures out the nuances of a strike zone. I kind of like different umpires having slightly different zones. There's something about that I find it to be really human. And at the end of the day, like, sports are supposed to be played by humans, not by robots. I'm way off the topic now, but
No,
it's,
but
it's
that's
a thing
but
that it's
no,
a
but
thing that I think about.
but that's the thing is like it's the imperfection of humans that like that this is like one of the things that makes life great. Right?
Yeah,
Like you because the thing is like if you're watching a sporting event, chances are like you're watching like some of the best people that you've ever seen play this sport, right? Like um and there's certainly like a tiny fraction of the existing population, right, who's capable of doing these things, but yet at the same time, no matter how good they are, they miss a shot, they fumble the ball,
yeah,
they strike out,
yeah,
right, like and so it's that fallibility,
yeah,
right, that it's the fundamental thing about human beings, right? Is that we are imperfect, and
yeah,
that imperfection is actually the thing that makes all of this stuff really interesting because greatness is rare and
yeah.
it's incredible to watch. But you also know that the fall from greatness can happen in a split second.
Well, look at Game 7 of the World Series the other night. I mean, incredible, really. Game, I guess Game 7 is a lot of talk about the base runner at third stayed a little too close to the bag on the ground ball to second, was thrown out by an inch. And then I was watching an interview. I guess he may have been on like Jimmy Kimmel or something. I don't know. But they had several of the Dodgers on, and Kike Hernandez, the left fielder, was talking about that play in I guess the 10th, where he takes a step forward, realizes, oh no, he hit it better than I thought. And he starts sprinting Willie Mays style towards the left field wall. And you can see that he starts to slow as he nears the wall because he's thinking, okay, I'm going to catch the ball. And he's thinking to himself, he said, the only thing that can stop me here is the wall. And I'll just run through it. It's the World Series.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, he's getting hit linebacker style by Andy Pagas. Pagas, however you say his name. And he's on the ground. Of course, Pagas is much bigger than him. It's full speed collision, and he's knocked down, physics. And he's on the ground, laying sort of face down on the warning track in Toronto, thinking, oh my God, we just lost the World Series. And he says that he hears Pagas kind of tap him and go, hey, are you okay? And he said, F that. Did you catch the ball? And he's like, yeah, I caught it. And he was like, yeah, got up. But it was like, that's human.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can't recreate that it was the Thunder story. The day before Game 7, the Thunder coach, Mark Daignault, told the team, we're going to throw a wrinkle at Jokic. We're going to put Caruso on Jokic. Well, Caruso's a 6'6" guard. Jokic is this 7'2" animal. Incredible player. Who the Thunder really were throwing everything at him. Nothing had really worked because nothing works for anybody. And at the beginning of the year, when Case and Wallace first started playing with Alex Caruso, he didn't think he was very good. He thought Caruso was just a veteran guy they'd thrown some money at. He didn't get it. And it turns out Caruso was sort of conserving his energy over the course of the year. I'll never understand why people call that number. It freaks me out. Over the course of the year. And but by that point, he had seen Caruso play like the all defense NBA player that he was when he helped LeBron and then win a title in LA. And he was asked, well, what did you think when you heard that they were going to throw Caruso at him? And he's like, oh, he'll stop him. He'll do it. It was total faith. The acquisition of faith in a teammate over the course of a 9-month season. I thought that was really cool. It was a neat story, you know. I mean, robots don't do that. You can't. To me, that's being able to tell those stories, is fun, and being able to hear those stories and understand that's what you're covering and that's what you're watching. And you're watching people do this thing, and they're very fallible. Like you said, they all have different biases or prejudices or whatever that over the course of time either tear a team apart or they go away and a team becomes a team and all that stuff. I always think that stuff's really cool. The people who are really good at what I do are the ones who can tell those stories. And you can't program that into AI to tell the story of, you know, how the Thunder figured out how to throw a 6'6" white dude at Nikola Jokic in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals and advance and ultimately win a title. That's good luck, AI, with that one, you know. So anyway, that's my story. Thanks to everybody who participated in the stream. Hope we got. I know I didn't get to everyone's questions, but I got to a few. Josh, as always, man, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
I don't know exactly what our schedule is going to be because we're getting into the holiday time, travel time, things of that nature. 2 weeks from today, I think Josh is out of town. The week after that is the day before Thanksgiving, and I'm going to be somewhere. But we'll figure it out. We might do a Zoom call and tape a show and get it to you. We'll figure out a way to get a show to you guys over the course of between now and Thanksgiving. So for Josh Hendrickson, I'm Neal McCready. Until next time, thanks.